became a grandparent Saturday.
Congratulations.
My daughter had a baby.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Boy
That's
or girl?
A boy, 8 pounds, 14 ounces.
Whoa.
Oh,
Big
nice
guy.
size.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great.
everybody's good. You're doing good.
Good. Are they nearby?
We're alive now, Lisa, on everything?
We are now live
Okay.
on both YouTube and Zoom.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the planning board meeting, June 10th, 2021. We might as well get started right away with the general business portion of the agenda. First item is to approve the May 6th, 2021 draft minutes, which have been revised today. And I think we've got the latest comments. Did anybody, I know Gil weighed in, I weighed in, and I think someone else did.
Barbara did.
Barbara did, okay. Anybody else have comments after that? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the
Motion.
minutes? Second? Barbara, okay, Barbara, I think you muted,
Barbara.
but that's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll move on to the trustee report from Rebecca.
Good evening, everyone. From the Board of Trustees, we had a work session that is looking at the code regarding small ancillary structures on properties. So that is, as the planning department knows, is being worked on currently and will be looked at. Code is being drafted and will come forward soon to be looked at. Of course, as always, new code goes through a public hearing before being adopted or not adopted by the Board of Trustees. So that ancillary structures in colloquial terms might be she sheds or man caves, anything, but also, glad I could make you laugh, Ray. Anything that is not attached to one's home, but is also not a sleeping, a potential area where one can sleep. So a recreational structure of sorts. So looking at code regarding that, because that is something that many folks in the village either want or perhaps have and can be made legal. So that's coming up. We're also looking at this code around Airbnb/VRBO, these short-term rentals that don't quite fall under the current bed and breakfast code or the rental code. So that there's some discussion about that having some purview relating to the planning board, the planning board looking at site plans perhaps. So once those discussions are furthered, likely in the month of July or August, that can be expected on the desks of either the planning department or the planning board. We're not quite sure yet. So that's what's going on with the Board of Trustees. And does anyone have any questions for us? Me and my many personalities, meaning us, I guess, in this instance.
Yes, I do have a question. These structures that they're working on the code, is that in addition to tool sheds, or does that include tool sheds?
It's a great question, Barbara. So the distinction with these ancillary structures is that they can have, the code would allow structures that can now have indoor plumbing, perhaps have some kind of heating and or cooling inside, and they would have electricity. So right now, and anyone can correct me if I'm incorrect on these details, our code does not allow for electric in unattached structures. Waiting for, I believe that's correct. So, so even garages are a little on the garages.
Yeah, so it's basically going to, we currently have code that allows all sorts of non-active accessory space, which is really just basically various kinds of storage uses. But what we've been seeing, particularly post-pandemic, are a lot of requests for maybe an outside personal office or an outside studio space or a pool house, or, people have come up with a lot of really creative ideas to make small spaces that are not habitable. There's no sleeping space involved. a place of refuge, to not have another term. So the idea behind the code would be, we wouldn't be redefining what possible uses. We're going to come from more of a form-based code approach and say, okay, how can we limit the space to the way there are no negative impacts, but people can still creatively use accessory space outside of their home. So we're going to limit things like you can't have any sleeping space. In a pool house, you can have a shower, but it can only be an outside shower. Any bathroom facilities inside the building have to be without a shower facility. If you're doing a kitchenette, you can't have a stove, but yes, you can have a fridge and you can have counter space. Limitations on the square footage. So we've seen in some communities where they've prohibited heat, but there's so much on the market now in terms of just plug and play heat and air conditioning that it seems almost counterintuitive to even bother. And then you also, when you prohibit the heat, then you end up with possible mold problems. You end up with having to winterize the structure. So there's a lot of complications with that. We think if we approach it more from a form-based perspective, we're changing the setbacks. Perhaps these more active uses have a larger setback than a shed, which is currently 5 feet off your property line. We're going to look at limiting the square footage. So you're not looking at perhaps a 300 square foot structure. Maybe you can't be over 240 square feet, and get creative with the use as best you can in that space. So that's how it's being approached right now. So that way we can give people a little bit more flexibility without putting in a physical addition to their house, but at the same time, make sure we're not having any negative impacts for the neighbors.
Thank you, Allison. Much more clear verbiage. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, that concludes my trustee report.
Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, just want to say that the next planning board meeting after tonight is July 8th of 2021, and we'll do the 6 o'clock start as we always do. Whether or not there's a public hearing, that would start at 6:30, as is going to happen tonight with a continuation of 1 North Country Road. Since we have some time, is there any application that we should talk about? Perhaps the next one on the agenda, Harborview at Port Jeff Condo.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick reminder, the 1 North Country Road is a closed hearing. The public hearing portion of that has been closed. This is just a post-hearing work session. So there is no opportunity for public comment because the public hearing has been closed.
That's right. My mistake. In fact, we can get to that then right away.
Dive on in.
Rather than get out of order on the agenda. I guess, Lisa, you should admit possibly a cast of thousands that are in the waiting room on this project.
Lisa, you're muted. Sorry, the Judo team should now, all that wish to participate have now been included in the meeting as panelists, I believe.
All right, good evening. We just rapidly progressed to this item on the agenda. So we're going to talk about the resolution that's on the agenda and some other things like the bond estimate. I know there was a landscape plan that just came in within the last half hour or so, possibly, to address some of Jen Siegler's comments. And we also have a couple other minor items, I think, to talk about. We also have the secret finding statement to approve. Jen, perhaps you want to get us kind of started in where you'd like us to begin and which you'd like us to discuss first.
Sure, no problem. I think, well, did you all get the memo, staff memo? If we start with SECRA, we could probably move on from there. I think if the board had no concerns, hopefully you had a chance to quickly review the applicant's Part 1 submission. If there were no concerns, I concurred with the answers that were in part one. If you have as well, then we could proceed to part two, which is the planning board's responsibility to complete. But in this instance, it's a little bit different. We're just looking at one site-specific impact, and that was the traffic, which has been discussed quite a bit
Mhm.
with the applicant's engineer, the traffic impact study that they submitted. If the planning board believes that this project poses no or little impact on the existing traffic and transportation in the area, then the answer to question number 3 on part 2 of the EAF, which would be the question that you would answer regarding the site-specific impact, that would be no. So that's,
Excuse me, Jen, is that question 3 or 13?
oh, I'm sorry, you're right, 13.
Okay.
It's on, and I think I just sent you that page, so you should be able to.
Correct.
And if you don't have it in front of you, Lisa has the copy to put on the screen if you need it.
I don't know if all the board members have had a chance to look at it, but I'm comfortable with the checking the no box on that portion of the form.
Okay.
Anybody else have comments or questions on that, on the board?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, so we can adopt the secret finding statement, correct?
Well, no, the next step would be to make a motion. Sorry, Ray. I know you want to skip. The secret finding statement will support your negative declaration of significance. So if a board member wanted to make a motion to adopt a neg deck, that would be the next step.
Any board member want to do that?
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second on it?
I'll second that.
Okay,
All right. And
all in
To-
favor on that?
sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And the secret findings just basically outline the reasoning behind your determination. And I don't know if you had a chance, I hope you did, to read them. If you have questions, comments, items that you'd like changed.
Anybody have any comments? I didn't.
All good here.
Okay.
Great. So seeker is concluded.
Do we need to
Um,
adopt that?
Yes.
Do you have to adopt the finding statement if it's a neg deck as well?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you,
said that?
Eric. Eric Russo. All right.
All right, can I get a motion to adopt the secret finding statement?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay,
And these will be filed with Village Hall. A copy will go to the applicant. Planning board retains theirs. So great. Moving on from there. Prior to acting on a decision, the board needs to consider a bond amount for on and off-site improvements. I sent out a revised bond estimate that the applicant provided earlier in the week. I did get a comment from Gil, which I think everyone was copied on.
Right. Yeah. I thought the only comment I had was, and I'm more familiar with municipal construction costs, but looking at it, the retaining wall cost I thought was a little bit light. I thought it should have been up closer to $200 a linear foot. It's not a big change, but there's a lot of work that's going to go involved and going to be involved in building that retaining wall, and it just seemed it was a little bit light. So I'd prefer to see it at 200. It doesn't change anything that much, but
Gil, did you see the response to that?
no.
The attorney responded.
It
Oh,
was
okay.
a lightning quick response to your comment. I
The,
know,
the answer to the question was that I called the client to see if he had any concerns. He explained that on the Brookport downtown that is under construction, he built the retaining wall as a private contractor and builder at $110 a linear foot. And he took that into account and factored a number with it that got it to the 134 that he put in his bond estimate as based on his current cost. Given the time projection. So he said 134 was what he had. If you have concerns, that's up to you to then decide, but I at least got you a response.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
It was 135 a linear foot. I can live with it. I just thought it should be a little bit higher given the amount of the proximity to the property line but it's not going to change anything that drastic one way or the other. So I'm fine with it.
yeah, it's a pretty large amount.
Yeah.
The only thing I saw was the first item, I think, exterior paving area. It's a square foot quantity and it's a linear foot price. So I think probably it should be square foot and square foot.
The $6 per linear foot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that seems, the price seems reasonable, so.
Okay.
I would think that's just a typo.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so the proposed total bond amount, if I have that correct, is $422,812.50. And that did not change by anything we just said. So we can now, well, that's part of the resolution, so we can talk about that further. I think that bond, Jen, you have as in the resolution as a draft amount highlighted.
I do. So
we
if
can
that's
Go ahead.
well, if that's the amount that you're satisfied with, you can make a motion to approve that bond amount if you'd like.
Okay.
And then
Okay, that's fine. Can I get a motion to approve the bond amount of $422,812.50?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, go. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so the bond is approved. Jen, do we now discuss a few items like landscape plan? And we had a comment about the radius and potential radius improvement at the don't block the box area adjacent to the project. So which would you like to start with first?
whichever one you'd like to start with. Makes
Okay,
no
why don't we
difference to me.
talk about the landscape plan, which just came in. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it.
I did.
Okay, that's good.
I did. So, Lisa, are we able to pull up a split screen of both or?
I don't think it will allow me, but I will do my best. I will try.
Okay, if not, that's all right. We'll
You can toggle back and forth from one to the other.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I had sent, so a primary function of the street trees that the planning board's asked the applicant to plant, very much like the conifer project, there's a fairly long expanse of unblocked southern exposure, which will translate into solar gain in the apartments during the summer. And one way to mitigate that is with deciduous trees that shade that side of the building, correct? The trees that we selected and that the landscape architect felt were also appropriate were it's a cultivar of hornbeam that has a very narrow habit. It's basically 15 feet, a 15-foot spread at maturity. So I did a sort of a little sketch over the landscape plan that was submitted and drew out, just sort of sketched what 15 feet looks like at maturity. And with the 3 trees that are planted in front of the building. So the parking lot has the advantage of having ginkgo trees planted along the curbing of the parking lot. So you have alternating, on each side of the sidewalk at the opportunity to do that. I think it's harder to do that effectively against the building, which is what the applicant has proposed. 15 in for my humble opinion, a ginkgo tree planted against the building will require hard pruning, so quite a bit of maintenance over the lifetime of the tree and or the building, and the branches will be fairly close to the windows. And the tree will, I think the spread at maturity for these trees is slightly more than the hornbeams on the other side. And I'd like the applicant to really examine, if we go back to the sketch, I do believe it's possible to get in without altering anything. 2 more trees in, which I've sketched on the plan, that would provide or make up for the insufficient shading. You can't put them in front of the entrances to the building, but I think it's only 2 trees, and I think that they'd require less pruning and grow more naturally, given more space. That's my spiel.
Okay, and you had made that comment originally, correct, Jen?
I did, and so I guess I'd sort of like to hear why the applicant opted not to do that, or maybe you would like to hear that too.
Yes.
I think Sandra's here, actually.
I'm looking, I'm not seeing Sandra on the screen here.
I saw her earlier.
Let me see. I brought her in originally. Maybe
She's at the bottom, but she's muted right now, I see.
Okay, I'll ask her to unmute and see if.
Sandra's on now.
All right, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can. Yes, hi.
Hi. Okay. So when I took a look at what was proposed, so I have a couple of comments, and they are that the trees that were proposed, which was the ginkgo biloba Princeton Century and the Copinus speculus France Fontaine, at maturity, these trees have these spreads of 10 to 15 feet. Now that's at maturity. And the one concern that I had all along was it doesn't matter what tree species you pick to plant down North Country Road. They are going to, if not pruned or somehow pruned or sustained, they will spread out into the street. Now those trees, there is no parking. It's not a parking strip or parking bays that run alongside that curb line of North Country Road. It is actually traffic. They are lanes. So anything planted along there is going to require some form of pruning. It just is by its nature, because there is no such deciduous tree out there that does not have a spread more or less than 4 feet, which is basically what the plant bed is. So given that, and given that between Jennifer and myself, we came to the agreement that, all right, we would plant ginkgos on, let's say, the building side, and we would plant the France Fontaines on the roadside. I figured that if we continued with the ginkgo bilobas and we added them into the 2 plant beds, which, if somebody can bring up that plan, what we proposed, we in fact have a wider bed against the building than we do actually in the bed that runs alongside North Country Road. So what I'm saying is it makes absolutely no difference in the species of the trees planted alongside the building, or if they planted alongside the street, they are going to require some form of pruning. We can get the height with them, but as far as the spread is concerned, we're going to have to do some maintenance. And so that's why I said, instead of trying to put them all along the street, we could actually get that alternating row, just as we have closer to the parking area. We can get the alternating row then with those 2 ginkgos added alongside the building. It seemed to make perfect sense to me without then going and changing the planting strips and the lanterns. So that was the thought process behind it.
Okay. Jen, have any thoughts? Reaction?
I do, and I definitely appreciate Sandra's expertise and advice. And perhaps the information I got was wrong, but the sources that I looked at for the ginkgo, I guess, well, there were 2 things. That the spread at maturity was a bit bigger. It was up to 20 feet for the Princeton Century, but regardless, so Sandra, do you think that sort of so I know that the hornbeams have very sort of fine branches that are, say, more easily pruned. They can almost be like pruned like a hedge instead of the ginkgos. But I mean, my primary concern is shading. So I'm pleased to see that, you know, a tree is being, you know, 2 trees are being added. And I'd like to, I guess, just hear your feedback on sort of pruning maintenance over the years. And along the street, yeah, okay, yeah.
Can I just add one thing here? Again, and we're looking at a project that's been designed by our landscape design professional who's helped us in designing our other 2 projects that we have and in maintaining the various Reliant Realty Group properties throughout the village. And as everybody is aware, when you go downtown and you start to look at the flowering trees that are there, the applicant has had a history of maintaining and ensuring that the trees are pruned, that they're looking proper, and that they fit the space. If there is any issue as it relates to disease, they make certain that they are treated and either replaced or come back in a way that they're properly growing. The discussion that has been ongoing over the last couple of days between myself and Jen, Eric Nicosia, and Sandra, as well as then going back and speaking to the applicant's position is that he feels that given the street front, given the space that's provided, what he's proposing as an alternative allows for a proper balance. And what was discussed also on the strip between North Country Road and the sidewalk was to make sure that there was alternative plantings so that Ms. Wadakor has put in there onion plants. I mean, she can describe everything that is being proposed along the strip so that if there were winter or fall or spring, it wouldn't be something that would look like a barren space and that the applicant could easily maintain. And as you have in your resolution, that it would be watered appropriately. So it's our position, and Sandra can reinforce and respond to Jen, that what we're proposing would be more appropriate. And when you talk about the building height, which the building itself is 36 feet approximately, we're talking a height of a tree that might be somewhere between 13 to 15 or 16 feet, depending on how it is. How many windows are actually on that side? And I think that's why he manufactures embedded shades. So if we can't cover them with the trees, hopefully there'll be shades inside the building that the applicant will be providing and could be augmented by the respective tenants. But I leave it to Sandra to go back and respond to Jen.
Yeah, am I on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I think, again, I mean, this was something that I felt that if we use the ginkgo biloba, I mean, Princeton Century was something that I know you had brought up and said, this is a species I would like to see on the project. I mean, it could just be a straight ginkgo biloba fastigiata. It doesn't have to be the Princeton Century, but it could still be the ginkgo. I think the fastigiata has a slightly narrower spread to it by maybe between 4 and 5 feet. But regardless, all I'm saying is, there is no tree that is going to maintain its structure at 4 foot and grow, to be 25 or 30 or 40 feet high, maintaining a 4 or 5 foot spread. I mean, I don't believe there's anything that exists like that. So all I'm saying is any of the trees that are planted, whether it be along the street, and I know I'm repeating myself, or along the building, will have to receive some form of maintenance in pruning. It does not have to be, sculpted so that it looks unnatural, but it certainly will have to have some of the, outer branches manipulated, for want of a better word, to be kept a little bit more upright. And where they can spread, we'll allow them to spread. So they can spread, alongside the parking area. We can let them basically, do what they do naturally, but the ones up against the building will just need to be pruned and maintained, just as the ones along the street will have to be. And I thought that the positioning of them was absolutely perfect to get that diagonal feeling that we have further up towards the Mather side. And they don't interfere, those additions don't interfere with any of the plantings that were already designed.
In addition, what I would also like to remind the board, when you look at the plan that you're seeing, there was a request in prior meetings that there be stamped concrete so that you would come out of the entrances of the retail and in the apartment space, and you'd had stamped concrete that would be there going into the building as well as on the streetscape between the area of the sidewalk and the curb. So you can see those on there. And in between, if you look at the plan that Eric Nicosia put forward, there are the lampposts that are also alternating between the respective trees. So that's why when we got done with the discussion, we felt the proposal we're coming back with, which is revised from original submission, would address all of the concerns that the board had raised and the discussions of prior meetings, and also kind of address and respond to Jen's concerns. So we would prefer to stay with the plan we've put forth this afternoon. And I discussed with Jen previously, she had shown some trees in the parking lot itself, but that was a misunderstanding because those are not islands. Those were striped spaces designated in the parking lot, and they weren't planting islands. And then we had the comments from the Port Jefferson Village Fire Department, who indicated to us that they wanted to maintain an openness at the site, which was contrary to what the concern that Jen was addressing, because they wanted to have access to the building unobstructed. So as a result, we had to eliminate the identical plantings on each side of the entrance on Thorn. That's why the tree was removed on the left side. And we were hesitant to put the trees in front of the building, but to acknowledge Jen's concern, we then put them there, said, this would probably be the best way, because the fire department was also concerned about overhead wires and how to access the building in the event of fire. So we feel our proposal would be best going forward if the board seeks to approve same. So we thank you.
Okay, Jen, any comments, response?
No, I don't think so. How do you guys feel?
I will ask other members of the board because it's above my pay grade, although we're all apparently on the same pay grade on the board.
Maybe you should ask for an increase.
Yeah, well, we got our salary doubled last year, and I think we're looking for a five-fold increase this year.
I think you need a good attorney to negotiate on your behalf.
Okay, anybody else on the board have comments or questions?
I just want to get a clarification, please, that I had assumed that the plantings right next to the building would be the responsibility of the Gitos, but that strip between the sidewalk and North Country Road, somehow I thought it was going to be the village responsible for the pruning because they always have in the past. And are the Gitos going to take care of the pruning on that strip next to North Country?
It's a good question. They are taking care of the irrigation.
Well, because always in the past, there used to be some beautiful trees on that road many, many years ago that the village just came and took down. So, you know, if the maintenance is by the Gitos, I think there's more control over the growth of it. But I don't want to assume that the Gitos are going to maintain that strip and it's going to be the village.
Okay, a response from your team?
On our side,
Yeah.
we'd like to be as penurious as possible. So if we don't have to maintain it, we're only providing the water, that would be fine. And then the village would be responsible to maintain it at Jen's direction. But we're responsible.
It's in my direction.
If we're responsible, I know we're planting it at the request of the site plan approval, then I would request that we maintain, and we're designing it and installing it the way this board approves it, then I would request that we maintain it the way we would like to move forward with it today.
Okay, so that was a yes.
Can I speak for a moment? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, I was gonna then let Mr. Cheeto speak on behalf of.
We would be more than happy to maintain it. We like to have control over landscaping. We do voluntary landscaping throughout the village, as many of you know. So we would like to take ownership and control of the maintenance of this strip as well, if you do not mind.
And that may be just drafting a maintenance agreement with the village. I don't know if Allison.
We have something similar with the parking lot that we created with the Rail Realty project, the Hills, with the shared parking lot. We provide the irrigation. We just mulched it again this year. We have our team weed it. So, you know, any landscaping that surrounds our properties, whether or not it's technically our property or village property, we like to help out with the maintenance of it, just to make it look as beautiful as possible. That's all.
Okay.
We know the village
Rob,
has.
do you know? Sorry, Rob, do you know offhand whether or not you have a formal maintenance agreement for around that parking lot with the village, or is that something that you just do because you're Gitos and that's what you do?
No, I believe it is part of the agreement. I know the irrigation is definitely part of it. I'm not sure it says that we have to mulch it every year and weed it, but you know, we do it.
So we
down
have a
at
nice
Barnum,
template
at Barnum
sitting there
too.
ready to go.
There's a couple of mediums around the Barnum house that we help maintain as well. You know, just it makes sense. It looks like it's part of our property. So we'd be more than happy to. And if it has to be part of the condition, then we have no problem with that.
So if I add,
so if we already have a template in place for the sort of maintenance, it wouldn't be a big lift to put together a quick maintenance agreement.
We'd be more than happy to do that.
and I'll if that's okay with everyone, I'll just add that to the resolution that such a maintenance agreement exists. Okay.
Good. Okay. We had something in a prior meeting about a sewer trap. I guess that was added, I think. Anyway. Sewer clean out.
I think Eric can address that.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
We would be tapping in, utilizing the existing sanitary sewer connection as far as it gets into the sewer, but the DPW is going to require us to have a clean out for the commercial space and a separate clean out for the usually one for each floor, although they've been a little bit less than that. So we have to provide a sampling well. It's kind of, I guess you call it, it's a clean out. There is a clean out, and then there's a sampling well, and then all that goes into the sewer system. So we'll be revising that. There's, you know, there's an existing grease trap on the site, and all that's going to be removed as part of the county's remediation plan to remove that stuff when we get to it.
Okay. All right. I wanted to talk about the traffic, possible, we talked last time about the difficulties in coming out of Thorn and making, in particular, a left turn. I think most of the traffic generated by this project will be making a right turn, but the left, if you come up behind a left turning vehicle and you want to turn right, we just wanted to see if the curb radius at the corner of Thorn and North Country could be increased a bit so that a right turning vehicle could get around a waiting left turning vehicle. We were just really looking for an evaluation of that. And Pat, I don't know if that's been done or you have some input on that or.
So Ray, in answer to your question, Pat and I and Mr. Gito looked at your email because Jen had kind enough forwarded along to make sure we had addressed it. Our first concern was there anything that needed to be done based on our prior discussions, given the fact that we had talked about block the box and that you had raised that and that Ms. Sabatino had raised the issue, this turning issue. And in the last discussion, Pat had come forward and explained what the block the box would come to look like. And then he took a look and we had talked about whether there would be a backup of people trying to turn right turn onto the street and who might create a vision issue for the left turn. So that being said, from reviewing our notes, we got the impression that perhaps it was not a non-starter. However, when we saw your email today, we decided to go back and take a look, further look and say, can it be done? Should it be done? And at what cost and what was involved? And the outcome of that, we quickly saw that there was a fire hydrant there at the location that would require a move of the fire hydrant with a cost to that. And then it came down to a question of, can it be done? And the answer was, well, it could be, but then should it be done? And that became a matter of opinion where I'm going to now give it over to Pat because he can explain what his view was. And then it's a question of what the board wants versus the issue of safety versus how we proceed. So
right.
Pat,
Before Pat answers, that was the negative of doing that, of pulling that radius back that I think I mentioned at the last meeting that I was not a fan of having two cars stop side by side where the driver of one is trying to look around or through the other one to see if there's any oncoming traffic. So that was the negative part or the negative disadvantage of doing that. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what Pat says after I just interrupted him.
He's been waiting all day for your question.
That's fine. So we talked the last meeting about it a little bit, but being that it was apparent that it was going to come up again, I got a hold of Eric Nicosia and we were looking at the plan in a little bit more detail to see what it would entail. So as Eric mentioned, right on that corner, as soon as we touch that radius, pretty much at all, we have to deal with a fire hydrant, which will have to be relocated to the west. And we would probably push it to the west about 10 feet. Mm-hmm. My guys tell me that could cost somewhere around $25,000 if we're permitted to use the existing lateral tap to the water main, which is in the street. If we need a new lateral tap, depending on what Suffolk County Water requires, that cost could double. When we add that, I know we talked just about the radius and allowing a vehicle to kind of sneak by somebody that stopped. We would, to make it effective at all, we would have to widen the roadway probably 35 feet up the road. In other words, the radius wouldn't just get larger, it would get pushed to the west. So the westerly curb line of Thorn Lane would move. And that involves a significant cost as well. So looking at that, I went back at the traffic study to look at the volumes again. How many left turn vehicles do we have? So, again, we counted these pre-COVID, and when I look at the 1 hour period in the morning, that's the peak. We had one vehicle make a left turn during that 1 hour. And to that, we may add one more vehicle. I know Mather Hospital is there and some of the folks here could potentially work there, but it's less than 800 feet away and they would likely walk. The last thing I found was, and you can see it on Eric's plan, the landscape plan. There's a stand of maple trees on the west side of Thorn Lane that would have to be cut down to make this improvement. That looking at it in more detail is providing an incremental improvement, but not an improvement that I think we need based on the number of left turns. And I'm not an arborist, but I've sat next to a few, and I think they add to the. I think they retain. They go a long way to maintain the character of the roadway from North Country Road, and if we cut them down, it would look quite different. So I'm only the traffic engineer, but I like trees too. So
right.
I just wanted you to take that in consideration.
The left turning volume in the morning was 1. What had
One.
counts? Any other periods? I don't remember.
I can tell you the PM and Saturday as well.
Sure.
In the PM we had 1, and on Saturday we had 1, and we had an equal number of through vehicles that jumped across the Walnut.
Okay.
And it's really not just it's not simply folks avoiding the left turn, because people returning from the east on North Country Road and making a right on Thorn are 2s and 1s per hour as well. So they're just not going in that direction.
Okay. Yeah, because it takes time to get out. So, I mean, in your opinion, from a
But
traffic,
they're not coming back that way either.
yeah,
They're not in that direction.
yeah. So, in your opinion, it's just considering traffic issues, would you say that the potential for a safety concern or a possible accident with 2 vehicles side by side that actually outweighs any benefit you would get by being able to do that and being able to have the vehicles side by side?
First, I apologize for my dog. I don't know if you can hear that.
No,
but because the volume doing it is so small, I do think the appropriate thing would be to leave it alone versus potentially wind up with a visual occlusion problem with the vehicles side by side.
Okay.
Which we've all experienced now and then. We're looking to make a turn and somebody pulls up next to us and it's like,
yeah. Yeah, then you try to inch out a little further than the person next to you, and then they inch out, and
then they do.
Find yourself almost in the traffic lane.
It's just the incremental benefit is so small.
Okay.
So the applicants,
I'm sorry, can I just clarify that you had said on the return trips, there were very few people coming from the east and turning right onto Thorn Lane?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The highest hour is 2 vehicles in an hour, which leads me to believe that it's not all that it's difficult to make the left. The people just aren't going in that direction.
Okay.
Their ultimate destination is somewhere else.
That's the pre-existing traffic that's already on Thorn Lane, does not take into account any additional traffic from the building.
That include, we expect about 90% of our traffic to go to the west. So 90% of the small volume that we have is less than 1.
Okay.
So it stays about the same.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other things to talk about, or you want to jump ahead to the resolution?
I think we can go to the resolution.
Okay.
Or maybe a decision regarding the 2 issues that we've just discussed. So there'll be no widening of changing the radius.
I'm okay based on what Pat said in terms of the traffic, the negatives versus the positives.
Okay. And what is the board's feeling about the landscaping alternative that the applicant proposed today?
As long as the applicant is maintaining the trees between the sidewalk and North Country Road, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I am too, and then we want to get a real reference to a maintenance agreement in the conditions, I guess.
Yep.
Right?
Will do. Sandra, I had one, if I may, just one quick question, and that is, as will the tree height continue to be pruned? Or will they be allowed, as much as possible to grow taller?
Yeah, I think that we don't have to limit their height, necessarily. And I would say that the only time I see if any pruning, any reduction in their crown is going to be necessary would be if there's interference in any of the wires.
Right.
But given that, that was why they were placed where we originally placed them, because there are in fact wires that run through various sections, and so that's why they were placed there the first time around. So we actually avoided any of those overhead wires. We avoided any of the electrical boxes, and that's why we came up with the design that we did, with the sections of planting and sections of lawn and sections of planting and so on.
Right.
So we took that into account.
But would you agree that hornbeam is a species to grow under wires, because they do have these sort of feathery branches, that they probably will not be much of a obstruction or need?
Yeah, I mean, it is a more delicate and finer branched tree. But I think that, that will be determined as they mature.
Right.
And, as Rob Gito already pointed out, they're willing to do the maintenance that is required. Obviously, we don't want, anybody going up close to electrical lines if we don't have to, but certainly, they could be pruned prior to reaching the lines, or we could, find an alternate solution. But the maintenance is going to lie with the Gito group. And I think, we've all seen what they're capable of doing as far as their maintenance is concerned. So, we can leave it in their capable hands.
Okay.
And we do have it, I checked, we do have an agreement for Rail Realty for a maintenance agreement, so we could replicate something like that to make things easier.
Great. All right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make one point
Sure.
for the board's consideration. As we just added a condition to the resolution, might I suggest that that condition be met prior to CO? There's no reason to be in a maintenance agreement for a tree that's not there yet.
Right.
And I think that gives everyone a little bit of time so it can be drafted and signed.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Lisa, maybe can you bring up the draft resolution with the sections highlighted that we need to talk about, that Jen had highlighted for us?
Yes, hold on one second. Okay, so would you like me to just scroll to the first highlighted section?
Sure. Okay, so the first one is is true, actually. You can take out the highlighting on that. Is that correct, Jen?
Yep, I'll remove the highlighting. I think the vote was 5-0.
5-0. Yeah.
Right. And okay, all of those highlights then will be removed. 5-0
Okay.
put in. That was
Bond-
approved.
The bond amount's approved, so you just take the highlights off.
Yep.
That is the bond amount that's highlighted,
Mhm.
which was correct.
Mhm.
Discussed that earlier.
And then if you just back up, so I will add prior to, following one of either 10 or 11, prior to issuance of CO, that this maintenance agreement for the landscaping and the North Country Road right of way will be the responsibility of the
Okay.
applicant, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah. Is there anything else we need to add? I don't think so.
You may have to change the dates on the plans. If the landscaping
right.
plan under AC6,
Good
you
point.
have to change to 610. Because we'll
Correct.
incorporate the draft that we gave you and make that 610. And you agreed that there was no radius change, so the site plan remains as of 6/8/2021 on AC2.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
You're going to take the highlighting out on page 6
Mhm.
in number 1.
Yeah, we got that.
Yeah, all highlighting will be removed.
And I did confirm today after discussion with Jen, with Castleton Environmental about the tank issue. And that will happen as a normal course when we're doing our construction. And we'll provide whatever necessary information is needed between Suffolk County Department of Health and the village, which is also recited in your whereas clauses and is, I believe, in the conditions.
Should be in there. Yeah, I think I saw it.
I think it's, yeah, it's there as the building inspector.
Yep.
On number 8. That was the only, I think you've addressed all the concerns that were under discussion since the last meeting.
It seems like it, yeah. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the resolution as amended tonight?
I'll make the motion to approve as amended.
Can I get a second on that?
Tom seconded, he was muted.
Oh, okay, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I can't see everybody, but I assume everybody's voting yes here. If you're not, speak up. Okay. All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Why are you smiling?
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night,
Take care.
everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item. It's an introduction in application. Maybe for those watching, Cindy, you want to read the particulars?
Muted. Okay, this is for Harborview at Port Jefferson Condominium LLC, site plan amendment. Location is Vantage Court. Suffolk County Tax Map Number, District 206, Section 16, Block 8, Lot 34.3. The zoning is RB2 Single Family Residence. The applicant is Harborview at Port Jefferson Condominium LLC. Property owner is Harborview at Port Jefferson Condominium LLC. And the contact is Harborview at Port Jefferson Condominium LLC. Description, proposed gate at the front entrance. And the action tonight is to introduce the application.
Okay. And this is Lisa's, so.
Yes, so this is such a small kind of request. I didn't prepare a staff report on it, so I'll have some documents to share to show what is entailed, and I will. There is a representative from the Homeowners Association who can present then and answer your questions. Basically, they voted for the Homeowners Association voted to install a gate to only allow residents and their guests into access the community. Today I was sent a few images of similar type gates that exist. We don't have anything in the code regarding this, so the only way to really add this type of thing to the plan would be to consult with the planning board. I'm going to show just the dimensions here of the type of gate. This is a 2-foot 5-inch center strip here that has the screens and the scanners with then a gate on either side for coming in and out.
Yeah, excuse me a second. Could you flip that so that
Sure.
with the text is readable from the bottom? Yeah.
Let me do that.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
I did consult with the fire marshal, and he said there was no, this did not present an issue to him.
Okay, good. Good, because that's a question, emergency access when they need to come in. How far back from the roadway is the entrance? Like, is there enough room to store some cars here if there's some delay in getting through the gates?
Yes, in fact, I'll show you. Let me just pull up a different image. So this is a unique community, the way this was done. And I also had to pull out the easement agreement for them because I didn't even understand how it had happened this way. The property, Vantage Court, is just off Reeves Road, right past the dance studio that's on the corner of Main Street and Reeves Road. And the property actually, the road actually has an easement across that dance studio property. So they don't own that portion of the road. Let me just pull up the aerial view here. I clipped it into a Word document. So you can see here's Main Street, here's Reeves Road, and then Vantage Court goes right across this property. And they have an access easement that's a non-exclusive ingress and egress easement to use this, and they maintain this road as a private road. But because they don't actually own this property, the proposed gate is set 5 feet back here from this property line. So if I can scroll down a little bit, this shows the whole community here. So, and
Can I go back a bit? Like, what were the reasons for a gate?
perhaps would you like me to bring in the representative from the Homeowners Association to talk about the project?
Sure.
Is that okay? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. So Dan DeLuca is joining now as a panelist. Okay. Let's see, Dan, if you are there, please unmute so you can speak to the board.
Dan, can you hear us? And muted?
He's still muted. Alternatively, if you would want, if you could, you can use the chat feature. If you're having trouble or you don't have a mic, you can use the chat feature to type in to let me know you can hear us, and I can give you a call-in number from that. Let's just give it a minute. You know, loosely, they had some security concerns that were expressed of people coming up into the community late at night that they didn't know. They feel, I think, a little isolated up there on this private road. It was from what I know that, you know, not everyone in the community felt it was necessary. They had a vote at the Homeowners Association, and I believe it narrowly won. There were more people concerned than were not concerned about access up there to what is then, if you look at that image again, a little bit, I don't want to say deserted, but it's a little isolated there. It actually backs up to the cemetery on the at the end of the court.
Okay. Can you try to unmute Dan? Or I see it looks like he's still muted.
Yeah, I asked him to unmute. I'm trying again.
Now, is that one property, I think Tunis's property up there abuts it also, right?
Yes, so let me just pull the image. Maybe I'll just pull the aerial.
I don't see anything in the chat either while you.
No, I do have. Not everyone has used this format before, so I'm just concerned he's having some issues. I might send him a quick email. So I can share this. Let me just share this screen.
Lisa, do you want me to try to call him?
Sure, let me. So here is the aerial again, where you can see that up here is Village Vistas, and down, and then the cemetery kind of surrounds it. Sorry, let me.
I'm curious for the Port Jeff people who've been here forever. Do we have any other properties that are gated like this?
I don't know of any.
Yeah, I don't know of any either.
Can't think of one. Like any of the apartments that are off of, oh shoot, now I'm blanking on the road that goes down to the high school.
Dark Hollow.
Yeah, Dark Hollow. Are any of those gated?
No, those aren't gated.
Yeah, as far as I know, we don't have them in the village. I have an image that some images he sent from, and again, if he was here, you could tell me which community this is. They're very common, I think, in Brookhaven.
Yeah, they are.
So
They have one in Belterra.
let me.
When what?
Gated?
To enter into Belterra, there's a gate.
Oh,
Sorry.
I believe the only ones that we have in the village are related to underground parking. So we do have some restrictions that are vehicular restrictions set up, but it's only with more of our more contemporary apartment complexes for their underground parking, not for a physical driveway section.
You know, Laura, sometimes those complexes that abut the cemetery, back in the day, teenagers used to hang out in the cemetery and, cross properties by foot. So, maybe there's a little concern there, but if that's what they're doing, if they're starting off in the cemetery, that gate's not going to help them.
No, and I'm, I think with this gate, it's not like it's going to be a real eyesore because it's so hidden back there. This is more for future. When we make a decision like this, I always feel like it sets a precedent for future things. And I'm just curious how people feel about gates. I like Ray, I like your point that there needs to be space for cars to be able to back up if there's a problem. But perhaps this is something that also gets addressed at the village level. Allison, sorry if I'm creating more work, but it may be.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, currently there's nothing in the legislation that prohibits such a use. That would require, if it was something that the village felt from a legislative perspective was not ideal, it would require a code change to outline that. Or if it was something that they wanted to encourage, and maybe there's some concern about where is there a turnaround spot. Say somebody pulls up. But I have to say, even without that being drafted in the code, you guys as the planning board do have the authority to put conditions on that, because you can only approve things that are going to work. So even without those conditions being put forth in the code, if there's anything about the proposal that you think you could find a way to make it work better, or that you'd like to see, it's certainly within your authority to be able to ask that, even without it being codified.
Okay, I just mean for future, also for future developments or developments that exist that might not have quite the long road or the turnaround, like you said. So
again, so from the legislative perspective, it would really be handled more the thumbs up, thumbs down. Does the legislative board want gates in the community or not want gates in the community? Even without that being recognized in the code, just because if you decided to approve a gate this far up a driveway where you can in your reso outline why it works, that doesn't mean you have to approve one down the line that doesn't work. Okay. You can apply that same criteria. It's not like you've now carte blanche gates everywhere. You still have the authority, even though there's nothing in the code that speaks directly to gates, to put conditions or changes or straight out deny something that just doesn't function, whether it's prohibited or those conditions are outlined specifically in the code.
Okay, thanks, Allison.
Sure.
Lisa, can you bring up that?
I think Lisa is on the phone with Mr. DeLuca.
Okay. Lisa, you think you can bring up the drawing of the gate again? I just wanted to look at something.
Yes, 1 second. I did just speak to Mr. DeLuca. I gave him a call-in number, so he should hopefully be able to call in. He's watching. He just cannot seem to unmute himself on his device.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I know, so many technical difficulties.
I know, not that I'm happy anybody has technical difficulties. It just makes me feel better.
Okay. No, I just sometimes at gates you have 2 entry lanes, guests and people with a pass. People with a pass get through quicker. They don't have to talk to anybody. I just wanted to see if this was 2-way, and it is. It's 1 gate going in and then an exit lane coming out. So that's good.
Yes, they don't have the width there to provide the extra lane.
Right.
Excuse me, sorry.
Just a point of clarification. I can't find the files. Where up the road is this? And is that a village road or is it just a long driveway?
No, it's a private road. I'll show you the images that they were not sent. Let me just, because we are literally sketching it out today. Let's see. So it's really just a sketch on the site plan.
I don't know if it has anything to do with, similarities, but St. Charles has a number of these within their lot to segregate certain parking areas. The same kind of idea where, you enter and exit after showing your pass.
Yeah. So they have,
Mather does too.
Right.
This is already quite a ways up this road because this is the property line. So
Yeah, looks like it was at least a couple of 100 feet. I mean, that's fine. The traffic should never back up that far. If one driver has difficulty getting in or any other reason.
and there is a sign at the beginning, already at the entrance to the road that says it's a private community. So I don't think that in this location, there's it's going to affect traffic for anything besides this community.
Okay. Do you see a phone number to be admitted, Lisa, or you see?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
I actually just gave him the phone number, but I'm
Yeah.
going to type it into the chat box too, in case maybe he didn't take it down completely or something.
But could you just clarify that if you roll up to the gate and you can't get in for whatever reason, there is a turnaround?
The road there is pretty wide. There isn't, I just put the call-in information in the chat box.
Okay.
So there isn't a separate turnaround. I was up there in my own vehicle and I could have easily made a 3-point turn any point of the road.
Right.
But I really wish we could get Mr. DeLuca on to answer these questions. So hopefully he'll be able to perhaps call in from one of these numbers that I just posted.
And the only time I've ever seen like significant traffic on that road is when the dance studio is having some kind of function.
Okay. You talking about the road that goes through the studio, Lisa, Laura?
Yes, the private road. I mean,
Private.
I don't know if that condominium complex is happy with it, but I know people park on that road sometimes when there's an event at the studio.
Yeah, and since it is most of that road is, well, not most of the road, but that portion up past the dance studio is actually on the dance studio's property. So as long as they're not blocking ingress or egress, they can do that.
I see a chat message.
Yeah, to unmute, what is the code? And I see it says total 1 phone call in listener. It says in attendees.
Okay, let me see if I can.
So
He just joined. Let me. Um, okay, Mr. DeLuca, you should be able to talk now, I hope.
Still see a mute.
It still says it's muted. I don't know.
Can you unmute it for him?
Now
There you go.
Okay.
I'm in now. Thank you
All
very
right.
much. Very frustrating.
It must have seemed like 3 hours when I was only on it 10 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for joining. You've heard the discussion. I don't know if board members want to ask Dan any specific questions. You joined at the right time.
Is it a safety issue that you want to put this in? Have you been having?
Yeah,
people on the property?
we've actually been having, again, I heard the cemetery, and it seems to be that's where they congregate within cars. So if you're familiar with that area, they go right to the top of the hill and they just park their cars up there, and there's a lot of beer bottles and people complaining about noise. So it's kind of really been last year we've had some security issues, and you know, the community came together. We did do a vote. People do want it, and it's more of a safety issue.
So you're saying that people drive up through the complex, park at the very end in order to go into the cemetery?
No, I think most of them are really just hanging around over there, you know, drinking and, you know, just doing things, a little bit of vandalism. Then they go to the pool area where there's another lot, and, you know, we do have surveillance on camera there. So what we're just trying to do is tidy up the security within the development.
Okay.
Has code responded to any of this? Have you guys called?
Yeah, we have called the constable. We've had some, you know, Suffolk County in there as well. But again, it's timing. They're always gone once someone starts opening doors. But again, the community put together a vote and they would like it.
Okay, I was just curious if there was documentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Village Vistas does not have a gate, right? So
That's correct.
I wonder if people, you know, if you put a gate up, if people are going to go over there. I don't know how easy the access is to the cemetery from their lot.
It's actually a little different because I have a brother that lives up there. You know, there's a gate that's locked from if you go up Liberty, where someone's not able to get in there. And I know I guess whoever oversees that cemetery lives over there, so he's on top of it, and they've had issues there as well.
Yeah. So right. I live in the Village Vistas, and so Dan, you're a neighbor, so nice to meet you. But I will tell you, there's an unusual amount of car traffic with young kids going through a cemetery.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised with the constable. They drive up through our community periodically. That is allowed to continue to happen. We haven't had an issue here. We did catch somebody on camera walking through the community late at night, but other than that, we've had no issues. But we're right there. We're very close.
Yeah.
And our community is wide open.
5 o'clock closing.
Yeah.
But all day long, there's a lot of traffic in there. It's bizarre.
That's odd. It's not that big a cemetery.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
They used to hang out there when I was young, and we're talking about a long time ago. You know, it's isolated. The kids can, you know, drink, and nobody's there to disturb them. You know, it's one of those, hey, let's go here. Nobody's here.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that, I hope, Barbara.
No, you know, in fact, I was freaking out because a friend of mine drove me over there, and there was a headstone right there. I'm like, let's get out of here.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan?
Oh, well, I guess I have one. How did you choose the gate style?
We looked at other communities in Brookhaven, the Lakes being one, and I believe we've sent you some photographs of that. And we've also did some due diligence on in Smithtown. And so that's how we've kind of looked at other communities that are larger and actually smaller and come up with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I think, if staff wants to review the drawing and the board can also take a look at it in terms of materials and, the type of gate maybe in the photo and things like that. But I personally don't see any problem with it.
Okay.
Just one question. Sorry, I feel like Columbo. Do you get many large vehicles coming into your community where if somebody came in, if somebody came in at night or was going to make a delivery and couldn't get in, how would they have enough room to turn around in, say, a box?
Yes, actually, there's been a lot of real updates within these types of systems, such as FedEx and Amazon basically have software now where they're able to actually bypass and go right into the computer, and it will open itself. From a standpoint of any emergency vehicles, there's a siren that goes off so the gates will open. And also, even if power is lost, the gates will automatically open and stay open until it's, driven back on, and then we would have to reset the panel.
Okay.
What are how do you handle something like Amazon Prime? They're all in little vans. How would they get in for deliveries?
There's actually software that they just came out with about a year ago, and basically it's a code that they go through a computer that gets access into the box.
And does the post office have that technology?
Post office is supplied with the number. The only thing that we know right now is Amazon, it's Prime, because it's now all being done by UPS is different. It would be communicated to UPS. Or again, if someone was receiving something, there is a code that they can actually call into the homeowner, and they can open the gate from there, either a cell or from anything you program. So their personal phone, cell phone, et cetera, et cetera.
So if you get a moving truck coming in on a moving day or something, they could call the unit or call a person.
Or the management company, which is also monitors as well.
Okay. Sounds like you did a lot of research on it.
Yeah, we did, because we really looked at the lakes, because the lakes have hundreds of homeowners in there, and kind of really looked at that because that was a fairly new complex that just put it back in over there. They've had some security issues as well, and it seems to be working fine. So we kind of did a lot of research on that, and the one by the mall, and it's the closest thing of having a guard service, but we didn't want to do expensive like that.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, I think that's good. We could take a look a little more detail at the plan, but it's right now it sounds very good.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I want to move on to the last and final item on the agenda, 112 Brook Road. Cindy, you want to read it in the information for anybody watching?
Sure. So that's 112 Brook Road, Boulder Court, Subdivision, location 112 Brook Road. Suffolk County tax map number is District 206, Section 11, Block 6, Lot 17.11. The zoning is RB2 Single Family Residence, and the applicant is Matterhorn Heights LLC, care of Don Nettinger. Property owner Matterhorn Heights LLC, care of Don Nettinger. The contact person is Don Nettinger, and the description is conditional approval of minor subdivision resolution of September 3rd, 2015. And the action is to review the bond amounts.
Okay. I guess, Lisa, you want to give us some background on this and the prior history, which I remember we had several meetings on this project regarding access and ownership and common driveways and grades, a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just give us the background.
Yeah, I had to recall, I think, the whole file from Albany because I was not familiar because it predated me. So that was like 4 folios files that had to come back here. So some of you, or maybe all of you, I don't know who was on the board in 2015, I believe the prior approval came through. This was a subdivision of 112 Brook Road, and I will share the final approved document here. So hopefully everyone can see this. This is Brook Road. This is a private strip. It was quite contentious and there was a lot of back and forth regarding this area. I believe the conclusion was that this was effectively a private road, which all the properties on it had effectively had access to for a forever, but it's not a developed road. The conclusion of the resolution was to allow the subdivision of this property, which originally included all of this. There was a very heavily sloped area here, which is to remain undisturbed. The subdivider is required to put in the drainage for this, as well as further develop this. Although it's not with asphalt, it's crushed gravel, I believe. And some of the conditions on the subdivision which still need to be met include, the bond estimate for all on-site work, including this installation, and securing the proper easement, deeded access for the road to all these properties so that they can never be excluded from it. But this is never going to be taken as a street by the village. So there's no intention for this to become a village road.
Okay. And just maybe for location purposes, Jim Tunis's development is on the east side of Brook Road.
Directly across the street.
Directly across the street. And those lots on the north side of Boulder Court front on 25A or Main Street in the area coming down from the west to the east, coming down the hill. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
If you can see this, it hasn't populated yet with the data from the satellite image, but yeah, so this is the Overbay site. This is that private road. And then this is the lot that they're working on now, resolving the final pieces of the subdivision so that they can develop. But most of these homes here do not have actually access, much of any access on 25A. So having access through this is critical.
Yeah, it's important because how do you pull out of a driveway there? I mean, speeds are high and there's a curve coming down the hill. So you're going faster than you think you are. Yeah, it's a tough area. So is the bond estimate the only outstanding item to close this out?
Well, there are still conditions to be met. However, the bond estimate is, I think, the last thing that requires the planning board to decide on. That deeded access to those roads, I know that there's been some language submitted to the office, and it's about finalizing with the village attorney what the proper language for those easements is and finalizing those. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but Don is an attendee and he's asking if he.
Yes, I see. So
Sorry,
I can bring it.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so I can bring in Mr. Nedinger to speak on this. Just before I do, I'll quickly just pull up my pre-submission memo because he did write to he submitted a pre-submission to find out what the next steps were to finalize what wasn't finalized in 2015. So I did send this to you earlier, but the remaining ones are the deeded access, the bond for all on-site improvements for the property, improved right-of-way. There's this question for the planning board of if the board intends to require a bond for the 10,000 for the adjacent properties. And then this liability insurance, that is something that is the planning board doesn't have to sign off on. That can be done with the village. So I will stop that share, and I'm happy to promote Mr. Nenninger to panelist. Okay, he's joining the conversation as a panelist. And
hi, how's that? Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Can hear you and see you.
Okay, great. That's success today.
It's a lot faster than the last person that came on.
I'm Don. This is my wife, Nicole. Some of you remember her from our meetings. Lisa did a great job. That's really, I just need some clarification on the bond. And there's two sections where I think the planning board needs to give me some clarity. I've given $2,000 in bonds already, and it asks for a maintenance bond. And then it says, to me, it's almost standard verbiage, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, of potentially $10,000 per lot, which would make this building unachievable for me because 10 lots touch Boulder Court in some way, even though there's really only 3 that might possibly access it because the westerly part is undisturbed. So I wanted to get some clarity on that because, you know, if it's $10,000 a lot and you're telling me 10 lots, that's $100,000. It's unsustainable for me. And then you have a maintenance bond. So, and then as Lisa said, there was a couple, some wording, there's a maintenance agreement, really just having your clarity on these 2 bonds is what I need to get done.
Okay. You're not specifically talking about, well, you are talking about is one of them the bond estimate for construction or not?
I think one of those was the bond estimate for construction.
Okay.
And then you have it as in the be it hereby resolved section. There's a couple different choices that were presented by the board, a deposit or performance bond, or simply completion of the required improvements. But in that section, in section 2.6, it says, in addition to the performance bond, the sum of $10,000 per adjacent or contiguous parcel or plot of land may be assessed. That can get substantial, especially for something that has relatively minor work to it, which is simply extending the driveway 6 feet wider and then putting gravel down and some dry wells and so forth. So there's not a lot of, it's not like Over Bay and Boulder Court, you know, type of construction. It's relatively simple. And, you know, we'll have it environmentally protected with hay bales and silt fence and all those things.
Okay, I see the condition 6 on page 5 of the 2015 resolution it talks about the performance bond. It says it's the sum of 10,000 per adjacent or contiguous parcel or plot of land may be assessed as security. I don't know.
That's right, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know how I resolve a maybe. You know, I think the board has to let me know what that number is. And then in addition, the maintenance bond also.
Yeah, the maintenance bond. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we can only to the bond, the job estimate for that bond. That's a separate, that's not either the maintenance or the performance. Is that correct? Or is it?
So if I can just interrupt for a second, the $10,000 per lot option is language from the code that allows the board to determine if they feel that the property, the project could potentially cause damage to neighboring properties, in which case, in order to ensure that that was put right, you have the ability to require the bond for the neighboring properties. I don't, that's, so that is your determination whether or not you feel that is required, and if so, for which.
So it's a $10,000 bond for each property? So it wouldn't incur $10,000 per property actual money of the applicant?
That's correct. Right. Yes.
So it's not $100,000. It would be whatever the bond of $10,000 per lot would be.
Yeah, and keep in mind, there's only 3 potential lots. The others are on the westerly side, the other 200 feet. And
Right.
like I said, we're graveling it. There's not a lot of curbing and stuff that go in. And there's already an existing 12-foot access, so we're just really expanding it another 6 feet.
Now the estimate from All Island Excavating Corp, which I have in my hand, and we have that we can pull that up. It's got both, if I read it correctly, it's got both on-site work and also work on Boulder Court together.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's the complete
construction
project from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And just to remind the board that the All Island is currently doing the work for the Over Bay project right now on
Right.
Brook.
Right.
And these estimates were done in, they're from December 2019.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Have construction costs gone up? It's just as much as everything else seems to.
Well, wood has gone up a ridiculous amount. I will say that I do have lower estimates on this site work, ranging from 37,000 up to the 49,800. I picked All Island because the village is familiar with them. They're professional. They're right here. So if it changed at all, it'd be a few dollars. Nothing like the wood construction, which has changed substantially.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so the 10,000 per continuous parcels, adjacent parcels, is a result of any damage done by the developer during construction. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've got a road that's relatively flat grades.
Yes.
So I don't know that there's the potential to have a significant amount of damage.
I would say minimal to none. I mean, there's always a potential, but.
Yeah. And I do notice, I'm jumping back and forth, but on the All Island Excavating Corp job estimate, there is a item at the bottom saying if any unsuitable soil is found, there will be an extra charge. I don't know if unless we add a contingency cost or something like that, we don't normally, I don't think, put an unanticipated item in a bond estimate. I don't know if the soil borings indicate that the soil doesn't look so good here. I mean, I know the water table is not far below the surface.
No, I think it was more of a disclaimer just in case they had to do some replacement of the soil for the septic system. The Suffolk County might require that, and they wanted to disclose it.
Okay.
But they've been on site and they didn't see any potential issue, and I think that's why it's listed as 0.
Okay. Any board member have questions or comments?
what's the piece of property that's on Brook Road, just north of the Boulder Creek? Doesn't have a house on it. Is it a parking lot? Is it?
That's are you talking about the back of Overbay now, which they've turned into a parking lot? It's north of the creek on the.
No, it's just north of the road that you're proposing.
That is a parking lot.
It's a
That's a
parking lot.
parking lot for the,
Is it paved?
Yes.
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 So hypothetically, that could, I mean, that might get damaged, maybe.
There is 20 to 30 foot separation from that.
Oh,
Yeah, that's quite a distance away from the border of the property.
okay. Oh, thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that gray, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm using my arrow, not gonna help you. No, not there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
right
there.
there.
Up
Oh,
there.
I see the separation, yeah.
Yeah. Well, wait, is
Oh,
there?
this wall.
I can't. So the other three, so there's two houses to the north of that parking lot. But they don't use Boulder Creek Road.
Not at all. Right.
And so it's is it 3, 4 houses?
Yes, and all those houses that you're pointing at right there have access on
Boulder
25A, and simultaneously they reach to the back of Boulder Court. So those are the 3 properties that potentially would have access, because the village asked me to keep the west side of Boulder Court, the last 200 feet, let's say, in a natural state. So even though they technically may touch it, one's a vacant lot, the others are on a cliff. There's it's woodland back there.
Okay, and then does that whole area, it gets pretty flooded?
Not the property itself, but Brook Road is the low point in the village over there. So where in front of my house, I can get some water buildup.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry if I'm asking these questions. I feel like there was a reason why we were considering the possibility of impact on those properties back in 2015. And for the life of me, I wish.
Laura, just to interject for a second, that I don't know that condition was put in there because there was an expectation by the board that there would be a negative impact. It's a pretty blanket language that's in our subdivision code, and it was put in there as an opportunity for the planning board, depending on when this was all finalized, in case there were conditions that had changed, to allow the planning board basically the little reminder, oh, by the way, if you see something that may cause some damage, you do have the authority and opportunity to levy that bond.
Okay, thank you, Allison.
Certainly.
Laura, could I just jump in for a second? Because last year or 2 years ago, when the Pine Hill Road subdivision was brought back, you as a board did look at their entrance is very steep grade and right on the property line, basically, of an adjacent property. And in that instance, you as a board did vote to include that property as, potentially getting damaged.
Okay.
And I'll interrupt one last time. You do have the authority to put in a bond for 1 property or 10 properties. Just because you're utilizing that tool doesn't mean you have to do everything that touches the property. It's within your purview to choose which lots you may find some possible impact and utilize the bond for just those alone.
Can we go look at the area? I drive by there in the mornings, but I haven't looked up that road.
Well, I was hoping, since it's already been approved, that we could really just get it to the bond amount so I could get moving forward with this project. I can, if it would help, I could tell you each of the properties. Can you bring the map back up? It may help if I can point, at least show you.
I can bring the map back up, but yes, I mean, I think you can look at the properties and, you know, if, you know, you need that information.
So if you look, I don't know if you can see it clearly. 311 is the Affronti family. That is completely wooded from Boulder Court back. Three to the right of that, to the east of that, is number 309. That's partially wooded and has access along the left side. And there's no curbs or anything. They're just grass lawns that they drive on and off of. And 307, I'm not sure if Mrs. Clark is still there. She was quite elderly last time I talked to her, and I haven't seen her for a while. But that's just a grass access. There's no curbing. There's no utilities. It's just simple lawn. And then the access that you're looking at, Boulder Court, is currently 12 feet wide. And so we're making it 18 feet wide per the board's instructions. But that's really, and putting new additional gravel down, there's gravel there now. So that's really the extent and scope of that potential work.
And how about 110, Don? That's a lot you wrap around, right?
Yeah, that's Pat Campbell and Jackie Frost. On the north side of their house, it's basically woodland on the east. It's black chain link fence along the north side, and they've got some arborvitae on the second half, the westerly half of that northern border. But otherwise, they face onto Brook Road. They border my house, and then they border the back of the lot. But there's nothing there. There's 18-foot buffer, I think, between what's existing now and their property line. And I think it'll get down to maybe 15 or 16 feet still of a buffer between the driveway.
I mean, any board members have thoughts on the amount? I mean, my thought is just a nominal amount on the bond, maybe 10,000, or if that's not enough, maybe something a little higher, but not anything. I don't see any significant challenges here.
The only thing I remember from this application was that I believe bordering this Boulder Court, there's a little stream there. Wasn't that a concern on the paper road or the gravel road?
That was to take out some surface water. That still exists. As a matter of fact, All Island just put a new drain at the bottom of it. It flows beautifully, and it was a hand-built thing from 50, 60 years ago with stone. So that wouldn't be touched. That side of the driveway is already established. We're taking the 6 feet off the south. That's the north side of the driveway. We're only touching the south side of the driveway. So there's nothing on that side. And that will be lined with silt fence and hay.
Okay, I'm fine with reducing the amount of the bond, or to bring it more into a reasonable amount for the work that's being done.
I can show a quick picture of Boulder Court that also that Jen just sent me. Let me see if I can just quickly.
Is that why Jen got up and left her desk to send?
Yeah, making sure I got her message that she sent me a picture. Hold on.
I have a few actually.
Let me just pull it up because
I'll send another.
Jen, were you on the board then? I don't remember when you left.
Many years ago, and then in 2012, I think this.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great picture. So that is basically halfway down Boulder Court. To the right is the north, and you can see very far on the right is the stone block for that driveway. Coming a little bit closer is the little hand-built surface water stream. Then there's the split rail. That driveway that's paved right there is 12 feet already. And then we're going south about 6 feet to get our 18 feet. And that's it. And the 2 or 3 people that we're talking about, you can just at the end of the fence see their grass driveway where they pull onto. So there's nothing there. There's no construction there currently.
Okay. That's a good picture.
You can also go onto Google Maps and go down and get a good view looking up the road from street view. Shows,
That's a good picture,
you know,
yeah.
I agree with Ray. I think a minimal amount is adequate.
Yeah, I agree as well.
Okay, so why don't we call that 10,000? Bond for 10,000?
And be generic about wherever it is along Brook Road.
Yeah, I think it's probably written that way, but yeah.
So you're just saying 10,000 for the whole project, not per house for
Correct.
the 3 houses? Okay.
Right. There'll still be a maintenance bond required, right? I mean, that's the normal standard bonds. This is that additional bond that we're talking about.
Yeah, number 6 on the.
Yeah, that's number 6. There's still the bond required for all on-site work, which has to be evaluated. I can share just to.
We can look at that now.
That would be great.
So this is just the Google Earth shot to give that.
Yeah, that's perfect. And that's right on Brook Road, looking down the length of the drive.
Oh, okay.
That is, I can't even Google Earth. Wow, right? Holy cow.
Okay. So we can limit the amount of the bond in item 6 to $10,000. And then we'll look at the bond estimate now, right?
Yeah, probably in consideration of the entire site plan and the work that has to be done. Don, was there a second note with bond amounts on them that you sent me, or was this it? I thought I had gotten another one from you, but I couldn't locate it.
Yes, I sent a second one, but it was just simplifying what your memo said back to me. Your memo is pretty comprehensive. So the maintenance bond, I wasn't sure if, are we talking about the $50,000 in site work to all island, and there's some percentage to that, or do you does the bond include the building of the structure of the house? I wasn't sure how to.
So this bond is supposed to cover all site work. The bond for the structure of the house itself is covered by the building permit.
Okay.
But all other, structural site work is included in this bond.
So that would be the $50,000 from All Island, basically?
Yeah, I was looking to see, are the retaining walls included on that?
I don't think All Island had the retaining walls. The retaining walls on the property are about another $10,000 to $12,000.
Yeah, I don't want to delay things, but I think we should get a new bond then to, if because that item's missing, and then we've got a little bit for inflation. I know the site work isn't gonna costs haven't increased as much as the building materials costs have, but I think we should probably get an updated bond. Can we consider this before the next meeting by email? No, we need a resolution and everything, right?
You don't need a resolution, but you do have to hold a public meeting to be able to do the vote if the board gets things in enough time.
Oh, okay.
If you get things enough time, I mean, you also can just.
I apologize, small children. So if the board gets things enough time and you want to call a work session, I mean, technically now that we do things via Zoom, the chairman has the authority to call a work session or meeting whenever the chairman desires. If you're able to all get together and do a quorum prior to the next meeting, it is certainly within your prerogative to do so.
Can I ask you a suggestion? If if you'd like me to update the estimates with All Island, that's a non-issue, that's fine. I was wondering if the board would feel comfortable if I also had the only other site work is the 2 small retaining walls. Perhaps you could give me, let's say worst case scenario, they're $20,000. Perhaps you could give an approval, based on that. And so I could just supply you with these estimates and we would be completed, and I could put that information together for you, since we would be adding the All Island estimate with the X amount of dollars onto the retaining walls, and you could say we want 0.5% of a bond on this total number, and I could supply that for the board.
I think probably what we want is a new estimate with retaining walls on it and a 2021 estimate. And then, as Allison said, we can convene a quick work meeting before the next scheduled work session for the planning board in July. I mean, if you had the estimate in a week, we then would have it. We'd contact the members, ask for availability within, say, the next week, and do a quick work session. I think that would be good.
Fantastic. I'll definitely work on getting that to you within a couple days.
Okay, that'd be good. And then, like I said, then we'll, Cindy will try to arrange, poll all the members and arrange a convenient time and day, which will be in the evening, but a day and time for that work session. And we'll set up the Zoom again.
Okay, that's very thoughtful. I appreciate that. It's very nice of the board to accommodate me like that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have any other thing to go over on this, Lisa?
No, I think that is that's good, and we'll just now what you're doing with the 10,000 bond. I think it'll be easiest just to vote on all that together when we're ready.
Yeah, as long as we might as well do it all at once. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else
Great.
have any comments, questions, board members? No. Okay. All right. Thank you, Don.
Okay, pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Anybody have anything else to add? If it's not on the agenda, or questions, or?
Wish everybody happy Father's Day.
And when, happy Father's Day. And when are we going to start back in person?
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for the governor to lift the occupancy restrictions that are currently still in place for in-person municipal meetings. And once those are lifted, so we don't have to worry about going over our capacity in a room, then I will bring it to you guys to see if you're ready for doing in-person meetings. Part of the reason we've stuck with the Zoom is particularly if we're doing a public hearing. With the reduced number of occupancies, I was always afraid that if we all showed up in a room and it became an on-fire topic, and we had too many people, we'd have to postpone for an entire month. And that wasn't great for us. And that's not great for applicants. So we've been on the more conservative side of keeping in Zoom. Though I'm sure, like many of you, I have incredible Zoom fatigue. I'm ready to, I missed your faces in real life. So I'll keep you posted on that. And once those get fully lifted, at the chairman's request, we can be back in living color.
That'd be good. And hopefully, if that happens, we don't go back to Zoom again, because there's
bite your tongue.
An increase. Yeah, well, we don't want to see it, but.
Well, it's convenient for these last minute meetings, though. Ray, I did have a question just in terms of going back to the harbor view. I just wanted to know if there's any follow up from me, anything you require, because I assume it sounds like you want to think about it, look at it maybe before voting on that project, but I wasn't sure if you needed any additional information.
You sent us the plan, right?
Oh, well, yes, I can send you everything that I have.
I was only concerned with the details on the plan, the materials for the gate, but.
Can we vote on that at the same time as we visit the Nenninger? Can we do that at the work meeting?
Yes.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great idea to get
Yeah,
these
and
little things off the plate.
No, I don't mean to be anti-gate, but I don't know that I'd want to see every property that's a condominium complex have gates.
I mean, if there's concern about that, perhaps that's something that's brought to the Board of Trustees for consideration. But again, as long as we've got, the planning authority, you can, without a prohibition in the code, you can pick and choose which ones work and which ones don't from
Is
a
that
planning
something that
perspective.
Planning board wants me to just have like a soft email out to the Board of Trustees asking opinions. Is that appropriate?
Listen, this is just me. So, and I don't want to start a whole process going. I just, so this was just my personal thing. So if anyone else is, yeah.
Well, I think that they have a good point about security, especially being by the cemetery. Not all condominium complexes have security issues.
Yeah.
Lisa, can I ask you a quick question about, so did I misunderstand? Are people driving to the cemetery, parking there, and how do they?
They seem to be indicating both are happening. So I'm not sure that their gate is going to fully resolve their concerns, because I think the kids are coming in through the cemetery. But he was saying that there's some that they're kind of circling that back area, that cul-de-sac, and then coming into where they have their pool and their clubhouse. And I don't necessarily think they're parking and staying in those locations, because that would be pretty easy to call security on, or call code, or the police about. I think it's more of that as they look for their entrance to that area, that's what they're doing, and they want to.
Because you can just walk past one of those gates. It's really vehicular.
Yes.
It's just to deter vehicles.
Yes.
Oh, true.
Yes. I mean, I myself don't, I don't know that I think that it's particularly useful for what they're trying to stop. But I think that it's out of a sense of frustration and wanting to do whatever they can to kind of control who's coming into the community.
Yeah, and if the majority of the people there want it, I think we should be open to accommodating.
Right.
But then again, I don't want to set up a precedent necessarily for every community to become a gated.
Yeah, I guess we could look at this on a case-by-case basis, and if a couple more, two or three more come in, then we maybe think about it, something in the code.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think your point about Village Vistas was interesting, actually, because that would be, I mean, when you try to think of where are the other ones, it's like, okay, well, how would it affect you then if it was right on Liberty? And obviously, in that case, there could be potential queuing issues, and it could affect traffic up there in a way that would be a challenge.
And lucky for us, we had a Village Vistas resident commenting.
Yeah.
Dave.
Anybody have anything else?
So I guess I won't go to the board with a suggestion we put a gate on.
I don't know. I'm still trying to get over the fact that Amazon can override the security.
Yeah.
That is something.
Yeah. Soon they'll be bringing the packages into our house. Here you go.
That's all right. No, they'll just fly over the gate with a drone.
Yeah, drone delivery.
Right in your backyard.
Since we're winding down, I thought I'd introduce Rosie to everyone.
Oh my goodness, who's Dish?
Look how cute.
This is our little Rosie. She came to live with us about a week ago, and the boys are going
Allison,
mad.
You
Kind of
are
what you
my
said.
hero. Young kids and a puppy.
Yeah, it's no problem. The husband just came home, so that's why it was a little chaotic on this end. But
I'll just
we
drop
got it
off.
handled.
I'll just drop off the espresso for the kids real soon.
Favorite, thanks.
Yeah.
Aw, congrats.
Thanks. She's a nippy little thing, but she's cute.
How old is she?
She's 12 weeks.
Oh boy.
Yep, she's something. Life is chaotic, but that's all good.
Whoa.
You can have her back now.
Yeah.
My son doesn't like to share.
Okay,
Good job, team.
thanks.
Thank you,
So we
everyone.
may see everybody in 2 weeks, but you know,
Yeah.
all we need is a quorum, so
And Ray, you'll have to get ready to sign some plans.
I can't do that. Sure, whenever.
All right.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Oh, and I'll second.
Okay, well, I guess everybody's in favor of that.
Take
All
care.
right.
Take care, everyone.
Oh,
Happy Father's Day.
All right. Bye.